It's important to not overreact to one loss in the month of December, early December to say the least. But the Memphis Grizzlies had a game that they could have won and they lost. And the main reason they lost is they did not have a star caliber player on the floor capable of taking over the game, although one of the players from Memphis that played in the contest is paid like a star player. I have some things to get off my chest. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. It is I, Joe Mullinax, your host for this episode of the show. Again, in the immediate aftermath of Grizzlies Spurs, putting out this show as close to the end of that contest as I can. Whether you're checking us out on Tuesday night or on Wednesday, we are glad that you're with us. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. As proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network out there. We are so grateful to be a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Google, literally anywhere you get podcasts. Become an everydayer. Hang out with us each and every time that an episode drops. I'm angry. And I'm going to do my best to not yell into a microphone because I feel like that's, I don't want to go viral for the wrong reasons or anything like that. I care a good bit about the city of Memphis and about the Memphis Grizzlies, the franchise. I would not be doing what I do 1,000 miles away from the city over the last decade of my life, whether it's blogging or podcasting, whatever the case might be. I care a good bit. And I know you do too. That's why you're here, right? You're an everydayer, hopefully. If you're not, like, subscribe, whatever. Hang out with us every time an episode drops. You care in some way, shape, or form about the Memphis Grizzlies, whether it's a reaction to the way that the game was played, or maybe you're a fan that genuinely comes to the show each and every time it releases. If you are an everydayer, you know that I am a vehement defender of Jaren Jackson Jr., especially when it comes to rebounding, right? Especially when it comes to rebounding, because I will continue to say that not meaningless, but it means a lot less for me than it does for most of you when it comes to Jaren in particular. Yeah, he's almost 7 foot. Yeah, he's a physical specimen. He's a perimeter big whose goal is to score in isolation and do things outside of the paint. Defensively is where you want to see him do some things within the rim protection role. As a rebounder, it doesn't bother me. So I defend Jaren. I think Jaren is a great representative of the organization. I have been a big fan of Jaren Jackson Jr. for a vast majority of his time with the Memphis Grizzlies, with maybe the exception being his rookie year where I saw him as a project, and it has worked out. He's a 2-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year. He's had a good career for the Grizzlies. He's panned out. Tuesday night against the San Antonio Spurs was embarrassing to watch a player that is supposedly the caliber of Jaren Jackson Jr. go out there and compete the way that he did. And it's not necessarily an effort thing, although I think you can, to the eye test, maybe a little bit more intensity, a little bit more aggression from Jaren. But where I really struggle in terms of the aggression is the offensive output. Jaren was 3 for 9 from the field, 0 for 4 from beyond the arc. Only 2 free throws attempted. Compare that to a player like Jalen Wells, who attempted 8 free throws in the game. Jalen Wells is not a dribble penetration, get to the basket, rim attacking maven. That is not Jalen Wells' game, but he got to the free throw line 8 times. Jaren can only get there twice. Now, I do think, in the name of context, if you didn't watch the game, the Grizzlies got a rough whistle throughout the contest. And Jaren is one of the most poorly officiated bigs in the entire NBA. If you watch this team regularly, you know that to be true. But for whatever reason, Jaren was not there in this game. Offensively, Jaren continues to be an abysmal creator of offense for others. 2 assists, 5 turnovers. And that's a 2.5 to 1 turnover to assist ratio, not assist to turnover. Turnover to assist. Jaren took away more possessions for his team than he gained for his team. And Jaren, of everybody that played in this contest, and this is what really grinds my gears, for everybody in the Memphis Grizzlies that was healthy and logged minutes, Jaren is the highest paid player. He's the guy that is a near max contract player. This is the guy that is supposed to be the current star for the Memphis Grizzlies, the star. And I really struggle. And I do my best to listen to Michael, smarter than me, my wonderful co-host, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for Commercial Appeal. When he says that not only is Zach Edey more significant than Jaren or Ja Morant at this moment, Cedric Howard, who did not play particularly well against the Spurs, Cedric Howard is more significant for the Grizzlies at this stage of the game. And I look at Jaren Jackson Jr. and the money that he makes every year, and yet there is a rookie and a sophomore NBA player that are fairly arguably more significant to this Grizzlies team at this moment than him. That makes me ask a lot of hard freaking questions. Like, when is the soonest that we can have legitimate conversations about trading Jaren Jackson Jr.? And it pains me to say that because I like Jaren a lot. And I think that he's done a lot of good things for the Memphis Grizzlies. But when the Memphis Grizzlies, in a game against a good basketball team, not the Sacramento Kings, not the Los Angeles Clippers, not the New Orleans Pelicans, somebody like the Dallas Mavericks. It's great that Memphis won those games because it sure as hell beats the alternative. But those were bad basketball teams. Those were teams that going into the season, fans and followers of the Memphis Grizzlies said, if the Grizzlies are going to make the playoffs, they have to beat those teams. Cool. That's happening. We're meeting expectations again, at least for a short amount of time. We're beating the bad teams. The Spurs are a good team. The Spurs, even without Victor Wembanyama and Stephon Castle, are a good team. We talked about that on our last episode of the show, how the Spurs knocked off the freaking Denver Nuggets without Wembanyama and Castle. And the Grizzlies were in the fight. The Grizzlies had the lead with about 3 or so minutes left in the game. And then what happens? An actual star, De'Aaron Fox, steps up for the San Antonio Spurs. An actual star. De'Aaron Fox scores 9 consecutive points for San Antonio and helps put the game away. An actual star. And De'Aaron Fox plays to his strengths and executes when his team needs him to do so the most. And what did Jaren Jackson Jr. do? Made 1 bucket in that same time frame. Lots of missed threes. He didn't contribute to winning. In the moment when the team needed him most, when he had to be the guy. This is why I don't want to talk about these trades. Because I don't think Zach Edey, if this team is truly going to compete, is the most significant Grizzly right now. Could be down the road. The numbers suggest he is right now, and he had another good game against the Spurs. We'll talk more about that here in a moment. But are you trying to tell me that the Grizzlies are a playoff team with a sophomore NBA big? No, absolutely not. Are you trying to tell me that the Grizzlies are a playoff team when their second most significant player is a rookie who played 6 games the season prior in college basketball? Absolutely not. If this team is supposedly good, it is because you have players like Jaren Jackson Jr. and eventually John Morant, when he's healthy, out there contributing to winning. And the other guys, the Edys and the Cowards, the Jalen Wellses, the Cam Spencers, the positives that we'll touch on here in a moment, they are supposed to be the glue. They are supposed to be the ones supporting you in a role that is not that of a star, because that's not how they're paid. That is not how they're viewed. They have not had that chance to earn those opportunities. They have not been in the postseason. They have not been in a place consistently winning postseason games. The Grizzlies did make the postseason last year. Catch myself with Edey. But Wells was injured. He wasn't in the postseason. Vince Williams Jr. was a shell of himself. He wasn't really in the postseason last year. At least not the way that we see Vince Williams Jr. now. You know who's played a lot more playoff games than all those guys? Jaren freaking Jackson Jr. And when the time came to win, Jaren disappeared. De'Aaron Fox didn't disappear. Jaren Jackson Jr. did. January 15th, by the way, is the soonest that Jaren Jackson Jr. can officially be traded from the Memphis Grizzlies. And I stand by my call me a Christmas. We still have a few weeks until that rings true. But I was severely disappointed in the energy and the effort and the attitude, especially late in the game when you pay somebody to be a star. At some point, the light's got to shine bright. And it did not do so for Jaren Jackson Jr. against the Spurs. And in part, because of that, the Memphis Grizzlies lost a winnable basketball game against a good team. It's frustrating. Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on X how you're feeling about it. Are you as angry as me? Jaren Jackson Jr. disappearing with the team needed him most on Tuesday night. It wasn't all bad, though. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we'll find some positives in a competitive game against a good San Antonio team. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. 48 teams for the very first time ever. It is going to be a massive event. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part of something like this. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You can pull up the app, see the layout. It is so simple to scroll through matchups, comparing seat views. Prices include fees up front, which I personally love. There's no last-second surprises at checkout, and you also get alerts from teams and matches that make it easy to grab tickets the moment that they drop instead of missing out. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. Your team each and every single day. Trying to find some sunshine and rainbows, right? Some positivity. Frustration with Jaren Jackson Jr. building among the fan base, certainly building within me. But it wasn't all bad. And we'll start with Zach Edey. We'll start with that guy it's wonderful to look at the numbers and see the impact he's making. His game is such that in the modern NBA, you can't say, here you go, Zach, go win, especially when you're down 6 or 7 points. When you're down 3 possessions, saying, all right, let's work the block. Edey didn't attempt a single three. He was 8 for 12 in his shooting. And I want to stress, Zach Edey was not the freaking problem in the contest. Zach Edey played well. The point that I'm trying to make is you have versatile players that played in this game like a Jaren Jackson Jr. who should have been able to take on more of that mantle. Zach Edey played well. He is being asked to do more than he should be asked to do right now. Doesn't mean he's bad. I don't need people in the comments telling me I just don't get it. I do freaking get it. He is a major problem. But the game situation changed as it went on in the fourth quarter in particular, and Edey should still be out there for his screen setting and his rebounding, but you have to have guys like Jaren Jackson Jr. step up in those moments, and Jaren didn't, as we already talked about. I loved what Jalen Wells did. I mentioned him earlier in the show. He was aggressive offensively. He was smart offensively. He took the correct shot. He made the right play. 2 assists to 0 turnovers. That's a ratio I can get behind. You don't want Jalen Wells to be that primary initiator of offense. That's not effective. That is not something that Jalen does best. But you want him to be efficient. And he was absolutely that against the Spurs. A really strong showing from Jalen. Although the -22 suggests that maybe it wasn't that good of a game for him, I think that had more to do with the fact he was playing alongside guys like Santi Aldama that didn't have as good of an evening. Santi really played poorly in his 24 minutes of play. Vince Williams Jr. continues to be a revelation as a creator of offense. 7 assists to 1 turnover, a 7-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. That would be really good for Ja Morant. That would be really good for Ty Jerome. That would be really good for Scottie Pippen Jr. You have somebody that's not a true point guard out there doing these things, made a couple of big threes. 12 points, 7 assists, 3 blocks from the lengthy Vince Williams Jr. That was a really good showing for him, and I was very impressed with how he competed in the game against the Spurs. And you have to tip your cap once again to Jock Landale. 10 points, 6 rebounds in 15 minutes played. Can't ask much more of Jock. And I do believe that the way that he positions himself, it just looks so much more fluid and more clean. It's a much more impactful use of him when he is a reserve. So shout out to Zach Edey being healthy and the ability for Landale to go back where he belongs. And I mean this respectfully, on the bench. He was a meaningful contributor in the contest, as was John Conchar. And don't get me wrong, nobody likes to beat up on old Johnny Basketball like me. I have said plenty of unkind things about Johnny Basketball, John Conchar, the basketball player. I don't know John Conchar, the person, from Adam, but I am not a fan of Conchar, especially offensively. But if you want to say there's egg on my face for one night with old White Rice, he made big shots. He drove to the basket. He made threes. He was active in terms of the offense. As a rebounder, he's always been above average to elite. As a defender, he's always been opportunistic. Offensively is where I've had my issues with Johnny Basketball, and this was one of his best offensive games, John Conchar. Making smart decisions with the ball in his hands, creating offense for himself and for others. I was legitimately impressed. This was a good game, and it's nice to have somebody like Conchar. It pains me to say it. It's nice to have somebody like him. Brevin Knight talked about it on the broadcast towards the end of the game. Whether he's in the rotation, out of the rotation, he seems like a guy that's mastered the art of always being ready. And you need guys like that, especially when you have the injury issues that it seems the Memphis Grizzlies do every year. So kudos to John Conchar. And Cam Spencer, man. Cam Spencer. It'll be a podcast topic here, there, and everywhere. And in blogs, Beale Street Bears, all sorts of places. Who loses minutes when John Morant and Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr. return? Maybe they never come back at the same time, at least, and it's not a question that we need to worry about. But Cam Spencer was 6 for 6 from the free throw line. Cam Spencer was 3 for 4 from 3. Cam Spencer had a career-high 21 points in 22 minutes played. And again, we're talking about someone who had 6 assists to 0 turnovers. Efficient creation of offense, not just for himself, but for others. So let's do the math on that real quick. Cam Spencer, not a traditional point guard, at least not in the way that we would think of one. That's probably what the Grizzlies are trying to get him to do more of. 6 assists, no turnovers. Vince Williams Jr., certainly not a traditional point guard. 7 assists, 1 turnover. So between Cam Spencer and Vince Williams Jr., you had 13 assists to 1 turnover. That is excellent basketball offensively. That is unselfish basketball. That is not just settling for good shots. That is making sure that you're getting great shots. That is your chance to go out there and display. When the ball is in your hands, you can make the right decision for the team with it. So Cam Spencer, I don't know how you take him out of the rotation if and when the team is ever fully healthy. I think that's a very fair question to ask. I was impressed with the reserves. I think the Grizzlies, once again, have one of the better benches in the NBA, but I do think that the Grizzlies lean on that a little bit too much. Way too many minutes for the reserves. No Grizzlies player played more than 30 minutes in this contest, and that was Zach Edey right there at 30 minutes on the nose, on the button. Jaren Jackson Jr. only played 27 minutes. He had 5 personal fouls. Maybe foul trouble had something to do with that. Cedric Howard, 29 minutes. Jalen Wells, 28 minutes. Aldama played 24 minutes in a pretty not good effort from him. Cam Spencer, aforementioned Spencer, playing 22 minutes. Tuomas Isalo continues to be that guy that just refuses to play these guys a lot of minutes. You know, you see reports of Tyrese Maxey playing 50 minutes in overtime games for the 76ers and displaying his athleticism, all these amazing things that he gets a chance to do. That's just not how Tuomas Isalo operates, man. And it could be good, it could be bad, it could be indifferent. It would be nice to see guys like Edey. I know I just complained about Jaren Jackson Jr., but you pay him to play. So maybe let him go play a little bit more. The minutes distribution is – Isalo talks about the long view, and this part of the show is supposed to be positive. So I do like that he has that awareness that the basketball season is not just November and December. Basketball goes into March, right? Early April. You want to make sure that these guys have legs and that they're healthy. You also have to try to win. And this was a winnable game. That is the frustration. When you go out there and you play the Oklahoma City Thunder in your current state, it'd be awesome to win. You just want them to compete. This was a game that the Memphis Grizzlies could have won. In some ways, you could argue should have won. They got really good play from several guys. It's the absence of closing from star caliber players like Jaren Jackson Jr. that really did in Memphis, at least to me, in San Antonio. We come back here on Locked On Grizzlies. We're going to close out this edition of the show talking about ways that Memphis over the next couple of days can get their priorities straight heading into a Friday night contest with the Clippers. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long using your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I already knew the game, but I never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You are no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the United States. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Closing out this edition of Locked On Grizzlies, it is I, Joe Mullinax, hanging out with you. Very grateful to have you with me as we finish up this edition of the show. And the next time that we're together, DeMichael should be with us, either him solo or me with him. And I'm sure he'll have some thoughts on the Spurs game that he'll elaborate on. I'm sure my takes on Jaren will generate some interest, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that down the road. But the Grizzlies probably will be off on Wednesday, if I had to guess, after a long road trip, and you don't have a game again until Friday. Give the guys a day to get their feet back under them. Thursday, hopefully, a good Grizzlies practice going into the game on Friday against the Clippers. What can Memphis prioritize? What can the Grizzlies focus on to put their best foot forward? Because as we've discussed before, and we'll continue to discuss, this schedule for Memphis remains very doable. Right? The Spurs game was interesting because it was an opportunity against a good basketball team. Who are you? What can you do? Cam Spencer was your leading scorer. Zach Edey was your leading rebounder. Williams Jr. for the seemingly 10th game in a row was your leading assist creator. Jaren Jackson Jr. nowhere to be found the last two games, including when the team needed him most in San Antonio. The Clippers, not a good basketball team. Then on Sunday, the Grizzlies play the Trailblazers. Not a bad basketball team, but also not particularly good. The Utah Jazz, also not particularly good, coming up here on the 12th of December after a few days off for Memphis. That is a fascinating setup for this Grizzlies team. They have a chance to get some rest. They have a chance to be at home for an entire week. The Grizzlies are going to be at home. What should they do with this time? They have to prioritize getting the ball moving when Jaren Jackson Jr. is on the court, because you cannot pay this guy the money that he's paid. You cannot put him in the positions to be that impact player and have him do what he did against San Antonio. So if he's uncomfortable finding his spots, well, darn it, go practice it. Go out there with him and make him uncomfortable. Get him running. Get him into situations that he can thrive in isolation, get his rhythm going. Find ways to engage Jaren Jackson Jr. because you cannot be a realistic postseason competitor. I'm not saying contender. I'm just saying competitor. I'm talking about sneaking in. If Jaren Jackson Jr. plays the way he did against the San Antonio Spurs, there is no team that is actually good at basketball in the entire National Basketball Association that the Memphis Grizzlies are going to beat. Getting Jaren Jackson Jr. involved and engaged within the schemes of Tuomas Isolo has to be a priority. We've seen some big on big pick and roll with Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. More of that. Be creative. Play into what Jaren Jackson Jr. does well and allow for him to find that energy within a game and be able to engage more actively with what you're trying to do, because that is not currently happening. at least not on a night in, night out basis, not for the amount of money and the resources that have been invested in Jaren. He's underachieving. That has to be corrected. You also have to find a way to get Cedric Coward going once more. Ced did not play particularly well against the Spurs. I'm never going to blame a rookie for the Grizzlies losing a basketball game, but you certainly could have gotten more out of Cedric Coward. Coward has shot poorly from three. He has not made a three-point bucket the last couple of games. He didn't make one in San Antonio, and he didn't make one against the Spurs. Cedric Coward finding his groove again offensively at home. It's no secret that shooting at home, especially for young players, role players, scoring the ball, it happens a little bit more cleanly for them. Wonderful. Let him have that chance to get back into a rhythm. Get him jump shots. Get him rhythm opportunities. Prioritize getting him in a groove, just like you got to prioritize getting Jaren in a groove. Zach Edey is the groove, right? At 7'4", 290 pounds, he is going to be able to do a variety of different things to make your offense efficient and impactful. You have to get more, especially out of Jaren on the offensive end. Defensively, when the reserves are in, it can't be a free run to the lane. Jock Landale has been pretty poor as a rim protector this season on the whole. He's gotten a little bit better since he's become a reserve. But figuring out the defensive unit, especially in the front court, how are you going to maximize the minutes when Zach Edey is not playing? Because we know that's going to happen, right? There were 18 minutes against the San Antonio Spurs that Zach Edey was not on the court for the Memphis Grizzlies. And if that sounds problematic, it's because it is. The Grizzlies need Zach Edey. They need those contributions. They need his size. But if Isolo is going to be hell-bent on not playing guys more than 30 minutes because he believes in this structure of system, you're going to need more out of Jock Landale. You're going to need more out of John Conchar. You're going to need more contributions from Santi Aldama on the defensive end. That's not what Santi Aldama is paid to do, but it most certainly has to be something that is a focal point if this Grizzlies team is going to grow from the current plight. And again, when I say plight, they won 3 of their last 4 road games. They went on a 4-game roadie and they went 3-1. Considering how things were going when the Grizzlies left Memphis a week or so ago, I'll take it. But what are the expectations? Are you in the tank mindset and you're totally fine with them just competing? And if they lose, at least they're not getting embarrassed? Are you somebody that is of the mindset that you want them to make a push? The Grizzlies, as of this recording, are right there in the mix for the 9 and 10 seed. They are right there. It's them, the Trailblazers, who the Grizzlies will see later on this weekend, and the Jazz, who are also coming up for the Grizzlies. So a couple of big games. It's right there for the taking. The Grizzlies can be a play-in team, but they have to find a way to get their reserves more sound defensively, and they have to get Jaren Jackson Jr. and Cedric Coward in a rhythm. Because when you are playing a basketball game and your two of your 3 most significant players shoot something like 0 for 9 from beyond the arc, how in the world are you going to win a basketball game when your 3 most important players are not making a single 3 across them? And again, Zach Edey, you don't expect him to do that. Cedric Coward and Jaren Jackson Jr., more is expected, especially out of Jaren. Getting that rhythm, that comes with practice, that comes with reps, that comes with communication about film. Here's what you're missing. Here's how you improve it. You have a couple of days here. You're going to have several days after that. Get into the gym, focus on those basics, re-engage Jaren. There has to be a spark if you really want this team to be a legitimate competitive team in this playoff or play-in conversation. Thank you so much for being with me on this installment of Locked On Grizzlies. It is much appreciated. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, go find Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there, your team every day. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Make myself and my partner to Michael Cole, my co-host to Michael Cole, part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies consumption each and every time that an episode drops. We will be back on Thursday morning But until then, stay safe out there. Have a great rest of your day or night whenever you're checking out the show, and make sure you're checking us out again down the road. See ya. Have a good one.